Good morning, friends, and welcome to the short talk on the path of self-regeneration. Among the most ancient and enduring questions of human existence is this: can a man become genuinely new, not merely reformed in outward habit, not merely improved in social circumstance, but renewed at the root, reborn inwardly, regenerated in the deepest sense of that word? Every great spiritual tradition has answered with an unequivocal yes, and has offered in its highest teachings a path by which such a regeneration may be accomplished. The theosophical philosophy, the timeless wisdom religion underlying all authentic traditions, holds that spiritual self-regeneration is not a metaphor, but a distinct possibility, and grounded in the constitution of the universe and the divine nature of the human being. And this talk traces that path through several interconnected themes, drawing upon the Bhagavad Gita, the Dhammapada, the secret doctrine of H.P. Blavatsky, and the commentaries of the Mahatmas. The teaching begins and ends with a single affirmation that the human soul is not a product of nature, but its sovereign. As the secret doctrine declares in its open pages, every spark of consciousness is, at its core, identical with the Absolute, an immortal pilgrim moving through cycles of manifestation towards its own self-realized divinity. Regeneration in this light is not the creation of something new, but the conscious recovery of what has always been. Theosophical philosophy teaches that the universe itself is a living process of regeneration. The cosmos breathes in great cycles, also referred to as Manvantaras and Pralayas, periods of manifestation and rest. And within each such cycle, every being is at every level of nature moves from incompletion towards completion, from latency towards expression. This is not mere mechanical repetition of a genuine advance, what H.P.B. Blavatsky calls the perfectionment that has to be attained by each individuality. And the secret doctrine says that the universe is worked and guided from within outwards, the life impulse behind all, making each world emerge from its latent condition in the absolute. Fohat is the dynamic energy of cosmic ideation, or regarded from the other side, it is the intelligent medium, the guiding power of all manifestation, the thought divine transmitted and made manifest through the Dhyan Johans. Fohat, the primordial cosmic electricity, the power of divine thought, is at once the force that builds universes and the power that in the human being is the energy of self-transformation. The serpent that devours its own tail is one of the oldest symbols of that principle, regeneration through the cyclical absorption and renewal of one's own energy. This is the thread self that runs through all incarnations as a living continuity that makes regeneration possible across lifetimes. The law governing this cosmic process is karma, but the perfect justice of cause and effect operating through consciousness. Every thought planted in the fertile ground of the universal Akasha, every act performed with clarity of intention, every sacrifice of the personal for the universal, these are the seeds whose harvest constitutes a higher life. The path of regeneration, therefore, is nothing less than the conscious alignment of one's own personal will with the law of spiritual evolution. Before any program of self-regeneration can begin, there must be a clear understanding of the being who is to be regenerated. Theosophical philosophy describes a human being as a composite of 7 interpenetrating principles, from the dense physical body to Atman, the pure, unconditioned spiritual self that is one with the universal self. In between lie the vital body, prana, the astral or the desire nature, kama, the lower mind, the kama manas, the higher mind, manas, and the spiritual soul, buddhi. And secret doctrine says that the universe is a combination of 1,000 elements, and yet the expression of a single spirit, a chaos of the senses, a cosmos of the reason. The immortal triad, the Atman, Buddhi, and the higher manas, constitutes the true individuality of the human being, also referred to as the inner man, who persists through death and reincarnation. The lower quaternary is its vehicle in any given lifetime. Regeneration, in theosophical terms, is a process by which the lower nature is progressively purified and brought into alignment with this immortal triad, so that eventually the personality becomes a true instrument of the soul, and the soul a conscious agent of the universal spirit. The Dhammapada opens with a declaration that points directly to the psychology of the inner man. And in verse 2, it states that all that we are is a result of what we have thought. All that we are is founded on our thoughts and formed of our thoughts. If a man speaks or acts with a pure thought, happiness pursues him like his own shadow that never leaves him. Here the Buddha identifies thought, which is the activity of manas, as a creative principle of human experience. This is not merely a psychological observation, but a cosmological one. Thought aligned with truth is the instrument by which a human being can remake himself from within. The discipline of the mind is therefore the central discipline of the spiritual path. The doctrine of the karma and reincarnation is, in theosophical teaching, not a concept of fatalism, but an invitation to creative responsibility. Every human soul has lived countless times before, accumulating through those lives a treasury of spiritual qualities and inevitably a burden of unresolved tendencies. What we experience in life, our temperament, our circumstances, our deepest longings, is in significant part the result of choices made in previous incarnations, and what we choose in life will shape the conditions of lives to come. Mahatma K.H., one of the adepts behind the founding of the Theosophical Society, wrote about this nature of this law, and he said, "For countless generations hath the adept builded a fane of imperishable rocks, a giant's tower of infinite thought, wherein the Titan dwelt and will yet, if need be, dwell alone, emerging from it at the end of every cycle to lend a helping hand to another struggling Titan for the salvation of mankind." This image of the Tower of Infinitude thought, built through countless generations, captures the essential theosophical point of view of spiritual evolution. It is a long, patient, cumulative work. No single lifetime is sufficient. No single effort is wasted. Each incarnation adds a course of brick or stone to the tower. Each act of self-mastery strengthens the foundation. The law of karma ensures that nothing is ever truly lost. Every good seed sown in the field of consciousness will germinate in its season. The Bhagavad Gita, which Theosophists regard as the supreme expositions of the spiritual path, presents this teaching through the voice of Krishna. The divine self speaking to the human soul. The warrior Arjuna, paralyzed on the battlefield of life by attachment and confusion, is instructed by his divine charioteer in the art of action without egoic identification. And here's what he says. Let then the motive for action be in the action itself and not in the event. Do not be incited to actions by the hope of the reward, nor let thy life be spent in inaction. Firmly persisting in yoga, perform their duty or dhananjaya, and laying aside all desire for any benefit to thyself from action, make that event equal to thee, whether it be success or failure. Equal-mindedness is yoga. This teaching of nishkama karma, as action without attachment to results, is a practical heart of the regenerative path. It does not advise indifference to the world, but a sublime detachment from the ego's narrow concerns, coupled with wholehearted service to the universal good. The self-regenerating soul learns over many lives to act purely as instrument of the will. And then at a certain point in the long journey of evolution, the soul awakens to its own divine nature. This awakening, what the secret doctrine calls the kindling of the spark of Manas, marks the beginning of self-consciousness and spiritual evolution, as distinct from the unconscious evolution of the earlier or the lower kingdoms. From this moment forward, the human becomes responsible for his own development in a way that an animal can never be. The secret doctrine says that the whole issue of the quarrel between the profane and the esoteric sciences depends upon the belief in and the demonstration of the existence of an astral body within the physical, the former independent of the latter. Out of the million individuals on earth, barely the 100 paths know that they are septenary, that all seven principles are in operation within them, though for the majority these remain unrecognized. The Dhammapada gives a clear expression of this awakening in his chapter on vigilance, and it says, vigilance is a path of life eternal. Thoughtlessness is a path to death. The reflecting vigilant die not, the heedless are already dead. Spiritual vigilance, what the Greeks call Nepsis, and the Vedantins call Viveka or discrimination, is the first great faculty that the aspirant must cultivate. To be vigilant is to maintain a continuous, clear-eyed awareness of the movements of one's own mind, to notice when a desire is beginning to distort thought, and when fear is masquerading as caution, and when pride is posing as principle. This inner watchfulness is the alpha and omega of self-regeneration. The secret doctrine offers an illustration for the condition of the soul that has not yet awakened to its own depths. And it says that like as a million suns pour forth their light simultaneously, so does the universe glow with the light of worlds. But the light of a million suns poured upon a blind eye is as dark, absolute. The eye that is blind is a soul asleep in matter. The spiritual path is a progressive opening of this inner eye. As it opens, the soul begins to perceive the hidden unity underlying apparent diversity. The Atman in all beings, the one life pulsating through the many forms. This perception is not merely an intellectual achievement, but a moral and existential transformation. To see the self in all is to love all, to harm none, and to serve freely. The central practical discipline to the regenerative path in all theosophical teaching is meditation, understood not as a technique for relaxation or psychic development, but as the systemic practice of turning the attention from the outer to the inner, from the personal to the universal, from the temporal to the eternal. The great teachers of the perennial wisdom have consistently identified this inward turn as a sine qua non of spiritual transformation. Sankaracharya, the great Advaita Vedantist, whom Theosophy regards as one of history's great supreme teachers, gave voice to the contemplative ideal, and he said that I am without attributes and action, without eternal and pure, without change and without form, without sin and without desire. I am knowledge and bliss. This declaration is not a mere philosophical proposition, but the goal and the fruit of meditation. The direct recognition of the self as pure consciousness, uncontaminated by faults of personality and circumstance. This metaphor is appropriate. As the alchemists sought to transmute metals into gold, the spiritual practitioner seeks to transmute the dross of egoic consciousness into the pure gold of self-awareness. The secret doctrine elaborates this process in cosmological terms. Just as the universe evolves through cycles of increasing refinement, from primordial chaos to organized form to conscious beauty, so the individual soul evolves through its own cycles of experience through ever greater self-luminosity. The process is described in one of the most evocative passages in Secret Doctrine, and it says that a pivotal doctrine of esoteric philosophy admits no privileges or special gifts in man, save those won by his own ego through personal effort and merit through a long series of metempsychoses and reincarnations. And therefore, nothing is ever granted, everything is earned. This is simultaneously the most demanding and the most liberating principle of the theosophical teaching. It is demanding because it places the full weight of one's spiritual condition squarely on one's shoulders, and liberating because it means that the highest possibilities are genuinely open to every soul, and not as a matter of divine favor, but as an inevitable fruit of sustained effort. As we are told, as a man sows, so shall he reap. The Dhammapada says the same, says the Lord, the self is a Lord of self. What higher Lord could there be? When a man subdues well his self, he will find the Lord very difficult to find. Self-mastery through meditation is a work by which lower nature is refined. The undisciplined mind, what the Bhagavad Gita calls the wind-blown mind or the wavering mind, becomes a serene, one-pointed instrument of the higher will. Desires that once drove the soul blindly are gradually understood, transformed, and redirected towards the good of all. The wandering pilgrim becomes a purposeful traveler. The servant of circumstance becomes a master of himself. In the theosophical teaching, self-regeneration is never a solitary or a selfish undertaking. The soul that has genuinely advanced in self-knowledge finds as an inevitable consequence an expanding circle of compassion, for it has discovered the self in all beings, can no longer be indifferent to the suffering of any. The two great commitments of the regenerated soul are therefore self-mastery and service to all. And these are not separate but two aspects of one reality. Mahatma M., who was one of the two gurus of H.P. Blavatsky, said that the great and peaceful ones live regenerating the world like the coming of spring. And after having themselves crossed the ocean of embodied existence, help others to cross it without any ulterior motive whatsoever. The image of spring is profoundly apt. The regenerative soul does not impose its light on others, but it sheds it naturally, as the sun sheds warmth without effort or intention. This effortless beneficence is the fruit of a complete inner regeneration. When the personal self becomes so transparent to the universal self that every action is, in effect, an action of the whole for the whole. And Shankaracharya identifies three prerequisites for this level of attainment. These are referred to as viveka, discrimination, vairagya, dispassion, and mumukshutva, intense longing for liberation. To these, the Bhagavad Gita adds service, giving, and self-discipline. Together, these form the steps of the regenerating life. And none of these can be omitted, and each supports and deepens the others. In the article called Self-Mastery, Raghavan Iyer says, each day treat as an entire incarnation. At the moment of waking, set a clear intention for the soul. Throughout the day, maintain the thread of that intention, even amidst the pressures of the world. At the moment of sleep, review the day without judgment, but with honesty. This daily practice, sustained over years and decades, is a substance of the regenerative work. The Dhammapada offers a similar image of the soul that has undertaken this work of regeneration and self-mastery. Meditative, persevering, ever strenuous endeavor, the tranquil ones attain nirvana, the highest freedom and happiness. The combination of meditative depth with ceaseless striving, tranquility and energy as complementary rather than opposing qualities, describes the hallmark of genuine spiritual development. The regenerated soul is not passive but radiantly active, not withdrawn from life, but more fully present to it than the ordinary man can imagine. The path of spiritual self-regeneration, as a theosophical philosophy presents it, is nothing less than the primary objective of human existence. All the institutions of civilizations, art, science, philosophy, religion, the family, the state, are in the deepest significance so many scaffoldings erected to support the central work of the soul. When they serve this purpose, they're fulfilling the highest function. When they obstruct it, they become the very chains that the soul must break in order to advance. The Secret Doctrine closes its first volume with a passage that places this individual work of regeneration in its proper context. And again, it says that the pivotal doctrine of esoteric philosophy admits no privileges or special gifts in man, save those that won by his own ego through personal effort and merit. And it goes on to say that to draw a deep line in your thought between the ever incognizable deity and the Buddhi-Manas. The one is the cause, the other effect. The universe is a school. All beings are students. The work of evolution is a work of education. The education of the soul by its own experience, its own effort, its own growing self-knowledge. The vision of a regenerated humanity is not a mere fantasy, the theosophic teaching, but an inevitable outcome of the evolutionary process, a process that moves through suffering and struggle, through error and correction, through death and rebirth, always towards the full flowering of the divine in man. The Mahatmas themselves stand as a proof of what is possible. Human beings who have, like us, through lifetimes of dedicated effort, achieved a genuine and complete regeneration. The Bhagavad Gita, in its concluding chapters, gives voice to the longing of the soul that has glimpsed this possibility and resolved to pursue it at whatever cost. And it says, and here's what Krishna says, "Hear now my final word, the deepest secret of all. I love thee well. Therefore will I tell thee thy salvation. Bear me in mind, devote thyself to me, worship me, bow down to me, so shalt thou come to me. I promise thee truly, for thou art dear unto me." In the theosophical reading, this is not a call for mere sectarian devotion, but an invitation from the deepest self, the higher self of the universe, to every human soul. Remember what you are. Return to what you are. Become consciously what you have always been in essence. The path of self-regeneration is, at its heart, the path of this remembering, a remembering that is simultaneously a rebecoming, a return that is simultaneously an advance, a destruction of the false self that is simultaneously the birth of the true. The Dhammapada, in its opening lines, stated the entire teaching in its simplest form. And it says this: all that we are is the result of what we have thought. All that we are is founded on our thoughts and formed of our thoughts. If a man speaks or acts with a pure thought, happiness pursues him like his own shadow that never leaves him. And therefore, to think purely, to act from the deepest and truest level of oneself, is to set in motion the great regenerative process. Each such thought is a seed sown in the universal Akasha. Each such act acts as a stone to a tower of the inner life. Over time, the seeds bear fruit. Over time, the tower rises. And in the tower, the regenerative soul at last stands free. Free from fear, free from desire, free from the illusion of separateness, and turns with the natural compassion of one who has found the source to help all others find it as well. This is a path of self-regeneration, ancient as humanity, open to all, accomplished by none without effort, and promised to all who persevere. And with that short talk, we'll open up for any comments and contributions. Thank you for listening.